Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we have our February recap pod, so y'all hear clips of interviews from every interview that aired in February, including conversations with Joe and Sam from Shields, Jake from Defeater, Dima and Alex from Space of Variations, Kat from Hoaxed, Tom from Tailgunner, Martin from Delain, and Zach from Dayseeker. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of As the Story Grows. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our mailing list, our Discord server, and our Patreon page, where $1 a month gets you early access to every episode. And we have other cool features. At $3 a month, I will send you some stickers, and you can get access to the After Dark podcast and other fun stuff. And make sure you check out February's sponsor, Tapehead City. Tapehead City recently announced cassette tapes for Fake Lighters Sinking In and Surfboard's Reality Star. They also have cassette tapes from Descendants, Funkadelic, Bad Religion, Refused, Operation Ivy. Plus, you can get cassettes across genres. They currently have Metallica's Woodstock 94 live double album on cassette tape. You can pick up High Desert Queen's Secrets of the Black, which is a killer record. So make sure you head on over and check out Tapehead City, tapeheadcity.com. And thanks so much to Tapehead City for sponsoring February. Enjoy today's recap of all the episodes that aired in the month of February. I'm going to jump into this record because it took me by surprise. So I was on a run, and like whatever album I was listening to finished, I popped on your record, and I felt I made a mistake because This Is Not a Dream is such an uncomfortable opener. It is so heavy and dark, and I was like, no, I can't do 40 minutes of this. and then when Abuser comes on, I was like, holy fuck, like just like punched in the face, like completely changed my perspective. I was like, at that moment, I was like, I got to talk to this band. This record is doing so much right out the gate. Like, it's incredible. So like, I'm sure there's a lot of history here, but let's talk about this record and kind of putting it together and kind of that track flow and like, you know, what do you hope to accomplish?
I mean, the main points of intention that we had in going into writing this album were actually very simple and very few, which made the process very easy to create a large and diverse body of work, which we then able to narrow down into Death and Connection. But the main running theme that we had in our writing process was, is this idea one that we enjoy? Do we like it? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, then let's explore it and elaborate on it, because we were really determined to write a record that we wanted to hear, as opposed to what we thought old Shields fans wanted to hear. And of course, what we were doing before was very much like quintessential metalcore, loads of fun to play, but it was very much of that genre and very easy to pinpoint. And I think we decided to not tie ourselves down to anything other than what we thought was good. And that's where we landed. You know, there were some tracks like This Is Not a Dream you mentioned, which were not really written for the record in the first place. There were some other tracks that were written years and years and years ago that, you know, we had no intention of being a Shields thing, but we were able to kind of pull them out of our own personal back catalogues of songs and ideas we hadn't used and elaborate on them because we liked them. It was a really healthy and exciting time to be creating.
Yeah. Samuel, as a guitar player, did that excite you because you're just like, oh, I got, you know, Abuser, which is this like fucking deathcore song that like is gonna kick people in the head right away, versus like some really beautiful melodic moments later in the record.
I'll easiest way to answer that would just be kind of just to tail off what Joe was saying. Like our first album, Life in Exile, like Joe said, was very just straight up metalcore for the most part. And in the 5 years between our long hiatus and deciding to do the band again and write a new album, Joe and I were very much of the opinion that let's not hyper focus on what's necessarily like the most trendiest like subgenre of metal right now.
Yeah.
Let's just make something that we both really fucking enjoy and that we think is authentically awesome and that we are excited about, because I feel like fans of any band or just music listeners in general can see through like a band who are just making something that's current for the sake of like going viral or whatever. And you know, every artist, every band, every singer, every painter wants their work to be appreciated and validated and enjoyed and to be successful. But ultimately, like, it's art, what we do, and it has to come from, in my opinion, it should come from a place that's authentic and real. And you know, the 5 years that we'd been broken up, Joe and I lived a lot of life. You know, we both were in long-term relationships. I was married, Joe was engaged, and both those relationships came to an end. You know, and the thing that ended our band was our guitarist, one of our members, sadly passing away, and so a lot happened in that time. And so we had a lot of we had a reservoir of inspiration for writing. You know, aggressive and music from places of not just like trauma and stuff, but mainly. And, you know, like with This Is Not a Dream. I mean, I think Joe should talk about this more, but I'll just jump in quickly and say, like, this room I'm sat in right now is my little, like, it's my little studio, but it's very much also like a HQ for Shields. And Joe spent like a lot of time here with me. And we spent about 4 months in this room making this album, just the writing process. I'm leaving out then the months we spent editing and like mix revisions and all that kind of stuff. And Joe would spend a lot of time here staying around. And there was one evening where Joe was up to like 4 a.m. and he just one shot that whole thing. He built all the synths, the whole track. He had these, I think Joe wrote the lyrics that night as well, and then recorded that performance. And then the next day, the next evening, Joe was like, "Hey dude, I wrote this thing last night. I don't know if I want to put it on the album, but it's pretty intense. I just want to show you, just for the sake of showing me." And he, as honestly as it sounds right now, it was pretty much in that shape at that point. It was kind of like one and done. There was some very minor additions where I was like, oh, it would be cool if there was like maybe a delay here or there, or maybe if you cut this into that moment and brought it back in. But other than that, like, it was done. And Joe played it for me. And I was like, dude, not only should this be on an album, this needs to start the album. This is such a, like you said, it's such a dystopian, dark, like it's such a curveball from what you might expect from a band like Shields, to then go into the complete juxtaposition as Abuser, which is like a fifth of the length and is just an assault. And that was once we Abuser as a song, because you mentioned that, I think that was just, I wanted to, that's my wheelhouse of taste, like incredibly like over the top, extreme, like genty, technical, hardcore breakdowns and bends and all that. I love that kind of stuff. And I remember I had written that track fairly quickly. It was one of the first things I wrote when we were doing the album, and it was before Joe had written This Is Not a Dream. I remember thinking, like, dude, imagine we start with this, and then with less than a moment for you to take a literal breath in the recording, we're then just straight into this. And I think we wanted this album to be, one thing that I've seen across a few of the music videos, like YouTube comments, is people going, man, I got to hear this album because like every song is so different. And that was very much our intention. I personally didn't want any song that followed the song prior to be even close to the same realm, or at least have something that really made it identifiable or like stand apart. And that's what we set out to do. I think that's what we accomplished, and I feel like you can see that from the single choices we've done as well. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. Was we just wanted to make something that was, I really wanted this album to feel like timeless. I would want you to be able to listen to this in 5 years and be like, fucking hell, this is cool. Do you know what I mean? And genres and trends and what's cool and what's not cool, like, moves quicker than ever these days. And I feel like you can either try and be a band that just keeps up with that and, like, you know, writes music that is as popular as the latest hot thing, or you can just stick to writing what feels right to you and what excites you, and there will always be someone to listen to that.
it's really cool. I think it's really unique for a post-rock album. How did this get started?
Man, a few years ago now, maybe like 2.5 or 3 years ago, I was just feeling like a little stagnant guitar playing wise, and just decided to like not like practice anything, just like play, like get kind of like, I don't know, get back to just what I loved about playing guitar. And so after a few months of like just setting a timer for an hour and not thinking about it and just like going, I had a few songs that ended up being the first few Jagged City songs. And it was just started as like a creative exercise that turned out to have this cohesive, like a lot of cohesive material in it. And and simultaneously, like me and Carlos keep in touch, or had kept in touch since I play with this band Thor and Friends every now and then. And I was playing with them when they opened for a few shows for Explosions in the Sky. In 2016, I believe. So that's when me and Carlos met. And we'd been keeping in touch. And I was like, would you want to play bass on this and just kind of like see what happens? The whole thing started as like, just every step of the way has just been like, oh, like who's a friend that would be like cool to rope in to do this thing? And it was sweet. And I don't know, you were talking about like being in I'm in my 40s, Carlos is in his 40s. Like we have this joke. I have this joke with a few friends that like we're at the age where to hang out, you have to like work on something. So it started as like an excuse to kind of like check in and like share music, but also like work on music. And then it just kind of snowballed. And then like coming up on 2 years ago, we were like, oh, we should record this, so it's not just like, we wrote these songs, it was fun. And we had been writing with Dave Hike from Pianos, who had been filling in for Defeater, and he still does fill in for Defeater. And the way the recording dates worked out, he was like going to be in South America with Angel Dust. So we needed a drummer and a studio, and Defeater just played with Rough Francis, Uriah Hackney's band. And I was like, he plays drums and has a studio. And he was down. So like, that's how it all kind of fell together. But the face kept asking me. But the face kept asking me. The face will just
In doing some research on the band, I see that Where You're From has been impacted directly from the war. Have you ever thought about like maybe this band isn't worth keep doing because of that?
Yeah, man. we had that moments like of when the war started, especially like we like stop, like we were supposed to go on Ukrainian tour, like everything was like prepared, and we then thought like who need the music during the war, and only months and months then we understood that the people live in these conditions and they need some sort of relief, and they need some sort of like this events, to distract them from the harsh reality they're in. So it was quite a journey of trying to bring the music into our life too, because it was not that moment that you really want to perform, and we were trying to bring this up from ourselves too, and it was quite a painful period. Alex, maybe you want to add some stuff.
I don't know if I have some extra information about it. I experienced it pretty same like feelings. Like this transition was like I cannot even explain. Like you suddenly don't have any energy and any emotions for music, for art, because kinda it feels like it's not needed. But yeah, later you understand that you have like some power for this, and slowly you can come back. And yeah, at this moment, people's like band and like artists, they back on track more, like all those who still working. I mean, and yeah, they making some shows still in these conditions, like absolutely actually crazy conditions.
Yeah.
For concerts, they doing it. They make some shows, make some this donation stuff, like they collecting money, and yeah. So that's what I can add here.
Yeah, so it's hard, but our people is incredible, and they sometimes we forget about it. We're forgetting about it, like sometimes, but like what these people are going through on daily basis, like no one deserves life like this, and it's a lot of respect and courage for musicians who will keep doing it, for every like basically like who's keep doing what they were doing, because this all first Corona, then like war. You can say like, oh, all right, I'm done with it. I get it. We're done, and seems like easy option, but the consequences of this decision is much harder, So, you always like during the career, you will always have like some doubts. Should I keep going? Does it find the right resonance, or am I on the right place? Am I there where I want it to be? Like, so you need to have some sort of different motivation inside you, like to keep going, and mostly this motivation to express like your raw like emotion, and I hope that this emotion will resonate with someone and heal someone, and hope and help someone.
This album's called Death Knocks. I know Two Shadows you wrote as like this story, and there was this whole lore behind the album.
Yeah.
Did you have that same approach as this time around, or was it more just like letting each song exist in its own world?
I think it was kind of a combination of both. When we first started writing this album, it was just like writing with April and like exploring that. She'd never written parts like this before. In her previous band, she was handed pieces. So this was the first one where like, we wanted her to like drive the bass and write those parts and really sculpt that part of the album. And she dove right into it. So at first we were just kind of experimenting with that. We wrote Where the Seas Fall Silent first. That was the first song off the album. And it definitely set a tone, like that there was a more upbeat vibe that we felt in those tracks, and with April being a part of it. And then very quickly, my lyrical themes, it became very clear that we were just talking about the idea of death and what comes next and the unknown, in a fun way. But, there's like very dark undertones to like what the lyrics in this album are talking about. And
that's why you're a metal band.
yeah, exactly. I know that's the thing. We have so much fun, but at the end of the day, it's like all of our topics are pretty morose. Like it's definitely dark.
Yeah.
And I think, once we got a few songs in, it was like, oh, this is clearly, like with Two Shadows, this is what the vibe of the album is about. We have a very specific thing we're exploring. And then it all just kind of like clicked into place and locked in. And April came up with the idea for the crypt, the mausoleum that's on the front of the cover. And it all just kind of felt complete. And then the name Death Knocks was something we've been like talking about, like that idea of like death coming and like giving you a clear warning before it's there. Death knocks 3 times. And it all just kind of fell into place. It was kind of surprising how quickly this album fell into place.
Yeah. Speaking of quick, it is when things are in the press release, like it's like drawing your attention to it, and it mentions that you spent 8 days tracking this album. And I'm like, maybe I don't think that doesn't feel normal these days, but maybe it is. But I'm like, if they're saying it, that means there's a reason for it. So what was that? Just like financial constraints of, other things? What led to that quick, like we want in and out?
Yeah, I mean, we actually booked 12 days and we thought we would be there for all of it. I think what set it off is we got Kim in there. We did drums first, and then we let the drums be mixed and like get to a pretty good place before we go back in and put everything else over top of it. She knocked them out in 2 days. I mean, she was such a machine. She just ran through these songs so quickly. She was nailing takes, like first take on the songs. And that just kind of set the pace. As soon as we got out, we were like, well, we got out 2 days sooner than we thought we would on drums, and then went in for everything else. And it was the same thing. Guitars were 2 days, bass was 2 days. And it all just like started falling into place. I think we'd had so much time with these songs before we got into the studio. Like, we'd sussed them out pretty well. We like knew what we were going to do. The only thing that really needed extra time were vocals, especially with April. We were like experimenting with her characters and her range and all the things she could do. We had a lot of fun doing that. But yeah, it kind of surprised us all how quickly it went. We love being in the studio too. Like it's a great time. You're like messing around and like trying effects and parts and everything. So it actually went a lot faster than I think we wanted it to, but no regrets. We got all the parts.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about like we're prepped and we know what we want, and you get in and get out and, save some money, right?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, we're lucky that like working with Falcon Studios and with Gabe and that kind of thing, they're super honest and good about that stuff. But at the end of the day, like recording is a huge cost for bands, but it's definitely worth it.
And why do you think that sound has endured for all these years? Like, there's still bands like you doing it and kicking ass, right?
Because for me, it's the best sound. It's the way heavy metal is supposed to sound. It's never a conscious choice to play old school metal or whatever. It's just that's what we grew up on, was Maiden, Priest, Dio, Halloween, Megadeth, Merciful Fate, all of those great bands and so many more. And so, like I say, that's just what came naturally for us. We never decided we're going to play 80s style metal or, we're going to be this band or that band. It was just, like, you like Maiden and Priest? Yeah, me too, man. Okay.
Yeah, nice. You talk about the technicality ratcheting up for this album. I mean, listening to the debut full length and then this record, it's clear like every aspect of the band is improved. It's better. It sounds better. It's recorded better. The songs are more well written. Is that just the process of kind of finding the members to fit to make this happen, or is it all that playing shows and like the process of just like knowing what works and what doesn't work?
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's things that we wanted to do on the debut album that we couldn't have done because the band was not technically proficient enough. And I include myself and Craig and Zach and, everyone that remains from the debut within that. I wasn't, as a songwriter, in the right place at that point because I'd never written songs before the debut album. And so a lot of it comes with experience and comes with that confidence that you get from the reaction that we had to the debut. I think that really... Like I said, I'd never written songs before, and when people really enjoyed that album, I went, wow, okay, like, maybe I can aim a little bit higher, So that happens, and also it's the other side of it, like you said, we've been out on the road and played over 100 shows, and that experience will rub off on you and make you a better band, so, it all feeds into itself.
Yeah. How were you guys able to have your first show be opening for KK's Priest?
It wasn't our first show.
Not your first show? Okay.
No, it was our first big show. And I guess we were lucky. We put out our debut EP Crash Dive. KK heard it and loved the band and invited us. And it was that simple, really. It was crazy for us because the stage was bigger than probably any venue we'd played.
Yeah.
Before then, we'd just done we'd done shows in like very, very, very small clubs to like 100 people max, or bars or whatever. So then that was the start of everything really for us, that show.
Nice. This new record's on Napalm. How'd you get connected with Napalm Records?
The debut came out on a label. We made the debut for no money and did really well with it. And we went back to that label and said, okay, we've proven our point. Now give us some money. And they said, well, you did it for no money last time, so you can do it for no money again this time. And we were like, fuck that. No, we're leaving. Yeah. Actually, we had to go through this whole, legal thing, which, we won't go into, but we knew we wanted to sign with Napalm. KK's band are with Napalm. We're managed now by the same guy as well. So there was that prior connection, and, we sent the demos off, and Napalm really liked what they heard, and we had some meetings and calls, and, there's such a perfect label for us because unlike a lot of other labels, they don't just sort of have bands that have made their name elsewhere back in the day and are now huge. Napalm have bands that they've taken from being little club bands to now being arena bands, and that kind of career trajectory, and that's what we want to emulate, So I feel like they're the biggest and best now in metal for a reason, and it's a really great place to call home.
Autumn's pale moon rise, thins the veils divide. Let your heart dream otherworldly chorus bids me come.
Or was it a long time after you left Within Temptation that you started Delain? What was kind of that inspiration to like just start a new project? I mean, especially because you left Within Temptation because you were dealing with medical issues. Like,
yes, yeah. I had a mono, and that took a hell of a long time actually. But I wanted to prove myself that because I was like 16 or 17 when I started in Within Temptation, so I was really young.
Yeah,
and I wanted to challenge myself. Okay, see if you can make an album on your own.
Yeah,
and then of course I was spoiled with connections to other musicians that were easily made because of the past I already had, and that's a little bit how it grew into that first album. And then the question came from the record company: can you perhaps do this as a band?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was touring.
Back at it.
So it was not a pre-planned thing that I wanted to do my whole life. It just happened, and I love it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it was not. I was 5, and I thought, okay, I want to be a full-time musician when I'm older. No.
Yeah. It's kind of just like a little happenstance that what you started when you were 16, 17, you're still talking about in your mid 40s.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a wild ride. What initially connected Delain with Napalm Records?
Well, first we were signed to Roadrunner Records, which was back then really a huge label, like bands like Slipknot, Sepultura, Machine Head, Type Negative. They were all signed to Roadrunner, so it was really cool to sign there. But then they were sold to. Was actually the owner was Dutch, and he sold it to Warner. Let's not forget Nickelback, by the way. Then for us, the Warner was in it for the catalog, for all having those albums, and they were not really in it for how do you say, growing bands.
Yeah.
And our contract was almost over. So then we switched to, I had contact with Napalm, and they were back then very much into symphonic metal, and they really had Delain on the radar. And I thought, this is great, because I also could have gone to Nuclear Blast back then, but Napalm was a bit smaller label.
Yeah.
And I thought that's better for us, because I'd rather be a bigger fish in a smaller pond than a smaller fish in a bigger pond.
Yeah.
And then, right now Napalm really grew a lot. And we kind of evolved together, so to say. And
What was it like for you stepping into the world that's like Christian metal adjacent, at least, if not fully into it?
No, totally. That was interesting for me because I grew up kind of in a Christian household. And then it's funny. I don't mean this in any kind of like condescending way, but I was playing Pro Sleeper and a fan came up and they were like, "Hey, like, what's your favorite Bible verse?" Which is an insane question, but at the time I was like, "Oh dang, like I don't know. I've never read the Bible actually. I just knew I was a Christian." And so I read the Bible.
Yeah.
And reading the Bible, I was like, "Well, wait, that doesn't make sense. If this happened, then that couldn't have just kind of got my brain thinking, and I was like, well, maybe I'm not a Christian." And then so I try to have these conversations with people and they're like, "Wait, you're not a Christian? I'm never listening to your band again." It's like, wait, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, I thought you just liked the music. I didn't know. So I have this like love-hate thing with it where I think religion can do a lot of good. Like Micah, the singer of Oh Sleeper, Garrett, the singer of Silent Planet, he's Dayseeker's manager. Like, I feel like if Christians behaved like these people did, then we wouldn't have a lot of the hiccups that we have with this.
Yes. Yeah. It's having grown up and come through that world, it's like wild to think like people treat these like poor children, because that's what all the bands, they're children.
Yeah, they're kids.
They treat them like shit. It's like a bunch of 18-year-olds who just like we're a youth group who just want to play metal, and you're just like now you're a minister. Like,
yeah. And it's like it's like I see how it can be a good thing for some people, but also when it's just like when you're trying to use music, which to me is this like special independent thing from like religion or whatever, it was just like almost like a perversion of it. Like if it gave me the ick, like all this it's like I would spend hours and hours and hours practicing. It's like, this shit's not free, right? Like you don't just wake up and know how to do like paradiddles or whatever. So I'd spend all these hours drumming. I'd miss out on parties. I'd miss out on relationships, whatever. And then someone would come to me and be like, "Oh, God really blessed you with this gift." And it's like, oh, he just gave it to me? Like I didn't have to work. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean he just gave me this thing? Like, oh yeah, that must be nice.
I spent hours and months and years of my life practicing.
Yeah. And so that to me is like where it gets a little strange, where it's like again, no disrespect, love and peace to everyone, but it's like don't fucking tell me that that this was free, that someone just gave this to me. Like that's like, how dare you?